morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? We're all good? We're all ready to rock and roll? Awesome. If you haven't already in the chat, please put where you're joining from. We love to connect each other. Also, if there's any questions that you have, hold those off till the end so I can see them and hopefully answer your questions. Also, if there's any topics that you guys want to cover, put those in the chat as well. We'd love to hear your insight and everything. So, okay, so today is a leadership skills training. So this training is going to feel a lot different than maybe what you're used to because there's going to be moments of discomfort. There's going to be moments where you recognize your own habits inside the examples that I give, and that's actually very, very intentional because real leadership development doesn't happen through being excited. It happens through being aware and through structure and through skill. So we're going to touch on this a little bit throughout this call. Just basically, I want you to think if you have ever felt like your team needs you for absolutely everything, you can't step away without things slowing down, you carry the emotional, operational, and motivational weight of your entire organization, then what you're experiencing is not a leadership failure. So I want to make that really very clear. It's not a leadership failure. It's a systems failure. And so today we're actually going to be talking about that and hopefully fixing that together. So the title of this training, well, I'm Coach Holly, sorry about that. And the title of this training is Developing Leaders, Not Dependents. And it's really important to understand the distinction because dependent teams perform, but only under pressure, and leader-built teams perform even in your absence, okay? So I want to give you a standard that we're going to work from today. If your organization requires your constant involvement to move forward, then leadership has not been developed yet. It doesn't matter what the rank is, what the volume is, or what the income is. And that might sting a little bit, but at the same time, we are all professional network marketing. We're network marketing professionals. We're all adults. We're all business owners, and leadership is going to require some truth, not being comfortable. We can't grow inside our comfort zone. We need to step outside of it. So today, we're not going to be here to feel better. We're here to build something that works. And so I'm really excited to dive into this. We know that most network marketing organizations, they celebrate output, right? So that would be volume and rank and recruiting numbers and how big you're growing. And that's really, really important, but output can actually be borrowed. It can be leveraged. It can be inherited from other people, but capability has to be built. So you can benefit from leadership above you, right? Like we've all seen this happen before. You can grow because of systems and structures that somebody else created. But when that support is removed, the only thing that's left is capability. And so when we're capable, we need to make sure that we ask, and I'll dive into these a little bit more later on in the call, can I make this happen again on purpose without relying on somebody else? And this is where that leadership development usually is going to break because we know that when something stops working, we're leaders. We jump in, right? If somebody's struggling, we're going to go rescue them. If there's momentum that's dipping, then we're going to push harder, right? And every single time as leaders we do that, we are unknowingly teaching our team one thing, and that is, don't worry, I'll think for you. Don't worry, I got this for you. And that creates performance sometimes, but it also really destroys leadership. And so I want to make this painfully real because that's what we're here for, right? I want you to think about your team. Who moves forward only when you are watching? Who performs well only when you are involved? And who freezes when you step back? Okay. That's not a motivation issue, that is a systems issue. And so dependency often looks very productive because when we step in, things are getting done, messages are being sent, calls are being made, right? Volume is being created. And on the surface, everything appears to be working, but underneath that movement is really fragile. Because if you remove the pressure, then performance is going to collapse. And if you stop pushing, you stop reminding, you stop checking in and following up and motivating, the system is going to slow down too, and it's or stop just altogether. I've seen that within my organization, Upline. They were pushing, and everything slowed down when they would back away for a lot of us. And that's how you know you've built dependency and not leadership, because leaders don't create movement, they create capacity, okay? Capacity just basically means that your organization grows because it knows how to grow, not because you are there, not because you're present. Your presence should accelerate growth, but it shouldn't be required for growth, okay? And something else that might feel really comfortable, if your team cannot explain why your systems work, then they are borrowing your thinking. I'll go into this later too. And when your team is borrowing your thinking, then you become the operating system. And when you become the operating system, then you unfortunately become the bottleneck, because everything has to pass through you to be able to function. Okay, and I want you to think about that for just a second, because most leadership burnout is not caused because of workload, it's caused because of centralization. It's caused because all that thinking and all that problem solving and emotional regulation and decision making, they are all flowing through one person, and exhaustion is inevitable. And it's not because there's too much to do, but more because there's too much that you're carrying. And so we want to make sure that within leadership, we know that there's an art in leadership of distributing responsibility and decision making. And this just means building people who can think, decide, and solve problems without needing constant direction. And that begins with teaching people how to think, not just how to perform tasks and not just how to follow instructions, but to think. Because when people can think, then they stop needing to be managed and they start becoming leaders. So today, every single thing that we talk about will build that capacity. And I don't want you to think that this is about working harder. It's more about building better. And there's a really big difference. Okay. All right. I want to touch on trainings really quickly, and how we create dependency in our trainings, which we need to probably take a little look at, and maybe switch some things. A lot of leaders are going to teach through stories. We tell how we succeeded, share our breakthroughs, our recent struggles. We started to get diapers for our baby. We started because, we had negative $10 in our bank account, right? We've heard these stories. And the stories are very, very inspiring, but they don't, and they're very motivating too, but they don't transfer the skill. They transfer more emotion. And so if somebody leaves your training and they're super inspired, but they're confused, then leadership development did not happen in your training, okay? So I want you to think about how many times you've either hosted a training or been in a training and you left feeling really excited, but you were very unclear what to do differently. Okay, if you've ever experienced that, it's because that is story-based teaching. Okay, so I want to talk about what actually builds leaders. Every single training that you do or that you attend should have 4 elements. First one is purpose. Why does this exist? Purpose, why does this exist? Second one is steps. What happens first, second, third? Steps, what happens first, second, and third? Standards. What does this look like when it's done right? Standards, what does this look like when it's done right? And then the fourth one is errors. What usually goes wrong? Okay, so without these 4 elements, we're going to have a lot of dependency increasing. So when leaders teach through story, it feels really natural, it feels authentic, and it feels human, like there's a human connection there, right? But it also creates personality-based duplication. And personality, we can't duplicate our personality. There's only one of us, right? There's only one of us for a very good reason. Systems duplicate. And leadership isn't about expressing yourself. It's about designing systems and guiding actions that produce real results. Okay? So the last training that you gave, think about this for just a second. Was it mostly what happened to you, how you felt, and how you overcame your obstacles, or did you talk about why this matters, what to do, how to do it, and what to avoid? Okay, so if you're doing an upcoming training, I want you to fill in the blank of this statement. By the end of this training, you will be able to what? Fill in the blank. By the end of this training, you will be able to do what? And if that sentence feels really hard to write, it's probably because you have been doing trainings that are story-based and not skill-based. And now you know maybe some area that you can fix. And just remember, leadership's not about being impressive and sharing all the stories and everything. It's more about being transferable. So we want to make sure that we lock into that. Okay, now I want to talk about creating freedom and how leaders create freedom really quick through standards. When you hear the word standard, I want you to think about what does that build up inside of you? Because most people will think that standards means control, but control is actually what happens when standards are missing. And if we don't have standards with ourselves, with our business, then people don't know the right way to do things, and they just have to guess. And so when people guess and they ask questions and they seek approval and they wait for direction. But standards are not about control at all. They're actually more about clarity. So when your standards exist, people know what's expected, how to do it, and also how to act without your constant supervision, which is the ultimate goal, right? So as leaders, we want to make sure that we're not managing our teams, that we are managing the standards. So standards, and I'll go into this in just a second. Standards tell your teams what to do, how to do it, how to know it's done right, and what to do if they're unsure. What to do, how to do it, how to know it's done right, and what to do if they're unsure. So if you can manage your standards, and your team will just naturally perform without you. And if those answers are really unclear, then your team cannot act as confidently as maybe you would want them to. So if there's any part of your team or anybody within your organization that is uncertain about different areas, that's going to create dependency. And so I want to walk through a real example. I want you to imagine onboarding somebody. So if somebody asks you, how should I onboard this person? And your answer is, well, I usually do this and this and this. You just created dependency, okay? Because now your personal behavior is a system. So that means that when you do it this way, then you're gonna have inconsistency and confusion and the bottlenecks, right? And so I want you to imagine that same question. How should I onboard this person? With, here's the onboarding process. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's what it looks like when it's done right, and here's what usually goes wrong. Okay? That's going to create independence. Okay? So make sure you have those steps in there. Standards are not something that are going to restrict anybody. They're more liberating, because when you have those standards, people are going to move within your organization without permission. The questions that they are constantly coming to you with are going to decrease. The confidence of your team is going to increase, and speed is going to improve. Okay? So for just a second, I want you to think about where you feel the most drained. That's almost always where standards are missing. Okay? So something to think about, something to dive into. What are your standards of your team? And if they're missing, dive into it. I'm trying to talk slow, so you guys can take some notes. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Okay. As leaders, I know this for myself. At the beginning of my organization, I felt that my job was to help, right? I want to help everybody. I mean, that's why a lot of us get into network marketing, is so we can help other people, right? We are in this situation and we want to help people get out of that situation. And that belief is exactly what creates dependency, because helping feels real good. Helping feels really good. solving somebody's problems. It's very productive. And that need for, I don't know, that like desire to be needed is kind of validating as well. But leadership is not about being helpful. It's more about being effective. And so every single time you solve a problem for somebody, you're removing their opportunity to develop skill. Okay? And their skill deprivation always shows up later. It'll show up in mistakes, in delays, in stalling the growth of their downline, right? So here's the coaching method that builds leaders instead of dependents. I want you to write these down. These are really important. 3 questions. Number 1, what have you tried? What have you tried? Number 2, what happened? And number 3, what do you think the next step is? What have you tried? What happened? What do you think the next step is? That's it. So at first, and I'll go through a real example of this in just a second, but at first, when you ask these questions, some people on your team, on your downline, may feel really uncomfortable, but that discomfort is their thinking reactivating, because you're getting them to step outside of themselves and actually think for themselves. If you rescue them too quickly, you're going to shut it down. But if you allow the pause, then you create leaders who can actually think and act independently, okay? So if somebody messages you, I don't know what to say to this prospect. Instead of answering, say this. This is what I do. You want to ask, what have you tried so far? Okay, so that was number 1 of the 3 questions. What have you tried so far? Okay, they're going to tell you what they tried. Then you ask, what happened? Then they will tell you. And the 3rd question is so important. What do you think the next step is? What do you think the next step is? And something really powerful happens when you ask that question is it's that they begin to self-correct, okay? And that's leadership development. So over time, their confidence is going to grow, their independence is going to grow, their decision-making is going to improve, and your workload is going to decrease. And we love that. We love that for all of us, right? So just know, leadership's not fast. Leadership compounds. And this is one of the highest leverage habits that you will ever build. So make sure you take those 3 questions and you apply them to your team anytime somebody comes and asks you a question and they're needing your input. Okay. I almost said any questions, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay. So let's see. All right. We know that network marketing companies advance leaders based primarily on production metrics, right? That's their volume, team sales, leg count, rank qualifications, all the things, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but companies really should compensate production. They have to compensate production. That's how the business is growing, right? Leadership development cannot rely on production. Okay? Production does not always equal leadership. My higher up went from the square one to top of the company in 10 months. And what do you think happened with that company? Crumbled. It crumbled. Production doesn't always equal leadership. And some of the highest producing individuals cannot duplicate. They can't communicate. They can't coach. They cannot emotionally regulate. And they cannot build independent teams. Okay? And when we promote production without leadership readiness, then what's going to happen? That rank inflation and leadership fragility is created, right? And this is where a lot of teams are going to collapse because people get elevated into leadership positions that they are not skilled enough to hold. Let's just be real. I mean, that's real life, right? So I want you, again, think about your organization. How many leaders are struggling at their current rank? Not because they're not trying, not because lack of effort, but because of that lack of leadership skill, okay? And maybe that's somebody that you can tap into and somebody that you can speak with. We're so short on time and I have so much that I want to say. Leadership, a leadership principle that we need to work from is that compensation may follow production, but leadership responsibility must follow demonstrated behavior. So basically what that means is that you can celebrate rank advancement, and you should celebrate rank advancement always. It's a wonderful thing to accomplish, but you should not assign leadership authority until leadership behaviors are consistently demonstrated. Okay? When we do this, then we're protecting the individual, the team, the culture, and the long-term health of your personal organization, okay? So before a leader is treated as a true organizational builder, they have to demonstrate 6 leadership behaviors. Sorry, there's gonna be lots of notes with this one. The first one is consistent self-leadership. Consistent self-leadership, okay? Consistent self-leadership just means that they show up without chasing. They're going to execute without panicking or emotional overreaction. And they're going to maintain that momentum without external motivation. They're going to be self-motivated, okay? Those self-led leaders, they don't need to be babysat. They just create their own urgency. That's essentially what consistent self-leadership means, creating their own urgency. The second one is teachability. Okay, are they teachable? Are they implementing the coaching? Are they really good at receiving feedback without getting defensive? And can they adjust their behavior quickly? Okay, this is really important because if somebody is going to resist correction, then they're probably going to resist leadership as well. Okay, third one is duplication ability. Duplication ability. This just means that they're able to teach simply. They can break complex systems into really basic actions. And they can create results through others, not just for their own personal hustle. Number 4 is emotional regulation. Sounds and is exactly what it is. You're just steady. When other people are freaking out, you're just steady. You don't emotionally hijack Zoom meetings or trainings that you do. They don't hijack the rooms. And they can hold space for struggle without becoming reactive. They're more present with themselves. The 5th one is culture protection. And this just means that they are going to address negativity really early on. They model professionalism, and they don't go into the gossip and the drama and emotional dumping. They kind of refuse all that negative. And the 6th one is ownership behavior. Do they take responsibility? They don't blame other people. Do they look for solutions? And do they lead through accountability? Okay. So if someone does not consistently show these behaviors, then they are not yet a leader. It does not matter what rank they are. Okay. And this doesn't mean that we demote. I mean, we can't really demote, right? We don't want to take anything away, but this just means that you develop their leadership skills before expanding their influence. Okay. Leadership authority is not granted through production or rank. It's earned through that consistent behavior and those characters and the things that we talked about, those 6 traits, right? So when we talk about leadership authority, we're not talking about the rank or the title or the pay. In network marketing, leadership authority means how much influence, responsibility, and trust someone is given within the organization. Okay, so who is asked to train other people? Who is trusted to mentor new leaders? Who's invited into decision-making conversations? Who's given greater visibility and impact? And then, who is seen as a role model for culture and for behavior, right? Leadership authority, it's not something that's automatic. It's something that's earned through consistent behavior and reliability and emotional maturity and alignment with those values, okay? So we need to make sure that we develop leadership before expanding their influence. That's the biggest part of that. Leadership authority has to always be earned, always. Okay, so we don't want to promote somebody, if possible. If we can promote within our organization, we don't want to promote first and then hope that they grow into it. That's not what we want to do. We want to develop their skills, test their readiness, just make sure that their performance is really stable, and then expand their influence. And this is going to protect your organization just by ensuring that leaders are prepared before they are promoted, okay? So we want to slow down so we can build them strong enough to last, okay? All right. I hope that was helpful. We're going to go into questions, so go ahead and drop them below. But I wanted to remind you that Coach Gill will be focusing on mindset with the title is Time, Energy, and a Strong Start. That will be next Tuesday, March 3rd, so make sure to tune into that. And let's see. Oh, one of you is from Murrieta. I know where that is. Okay. There's a lot of things on here, so and I wish I could read through all these. See? You're welcome, all of you that said thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, when you ask the 3 questions, what did you try, what happened, what did you think, what do you think you should try next? How do you respond when they say, I don't know? That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, the pause is really important. If you can just stop for a second and ask the question and just let them think. I feel like sometimes people feel silence. So some ideas might come in that silence. You can go back to previous conversations that maybe you've had before with other, I mean, that really has to be them doing the responding to the question. Otherwise, again, you're thinking for them, and we don't want to think for them. That's really great. What have you seen done before? What has worked before? What's worked for you before? Thank you, Antonia. Appreciate that. Okay, so if my team member is promoted by her volume, but her leadership skills are not so great, what should you do? You need to have a sit down with her. The biggest thing in this whole training is that you don't want their influence. If they don't have the skills, you don't want them doing trainings. You don't want them onboarding people. So you just don't give them leadership responsibilities. You train them on that. I hope that answered your question. Okay. Someone's looking for a roommate in Vegas. Okay, let's see. What is the basis of your leadership knowledge? There's like a thing that's covering part of your question. As I'm scrolling down, it's following yours for some reason. Let's see. Book, course, training, basis of my leadership knowledge. I have a network marketing business that I've been part of for, oh my gosh, like 15 years. I am a personal development coach, and I've gone through all the course trainings for personal development, but I think a lot of it is just through my knowledge of network marketing. I thought this topic was really awesome, so I'm glad that worked out for so many of you. How does someone obtain the experience if someone else is doing the onboarding? Oh wait, where did that go? onboarding or the leadership skills. The leader doesn't allow you to shadow. How does someone obtain the experience if someone else is doing the onboarding? That's hard. I mean, have them listen to this recording. I don't know. Maybe go to them and just ask them, like, are you thinking for yourself? How does someone obtain the experience if someone else is doing the onboarding? Are you talking about yourself? If the leader isn't allowing you to shadow, that's a leader issue. That's not, I would maybe go to a sideline person. If you need to shadow somebody, find somebody that you trust. Find somebody that's good at what they do and has the skills, and I would shadow those people. If your upline isn't allowing you to shadow, which is kind of cuckoo to me, but no judgment. Okay, we're over on time. Let's see. I'll do one more. Let's see. What is your recommendation with those who advance? Those who advanced, they don't have the leadership skills, but they expect the big team to follow them. And they might. Sometimes that happens. Are they under you? Like, I mean, that's the question, because, I mean, there's not really much you can do. I don't know. State your expectations. If they're underneath you, just state your expectations. I hate when there's unspoken expectations within organizations, so speak your mind. I don't know if that answered your question. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm out. See ya. Thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate all of you. It's good to see some familiar faces on here from a couple weeks ago. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time.